Hello, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to the session today on technology in the boardroom. While we wait for other participants to join, if you could just type in the chat box where you're joining us from and what industry you currently work in.
Morning, everybody. Lovely to see people online already. Yeah, just let us know if you can hear or not hear us, or any issues that we need to try and attend to. I will give it a few minutes more for everyone to join.
Hello, Uchechi from UBA, Nigeria. Hello, Sunny. Cold Cape Town. It's raining here as well in Lagos. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, Shola. It's good to see you here on the call. We have Ollie from the UK. Welcome.
The UK, where it's sunny and springtime, apparently.
Yes, yes. So while we wait for other people to join, I'm just going to go over some of the housekeeping rules. The session is being recorded. We were scheduled to start at 11, but we'll give participants a few more minutes to join. If you have a question, kindly put it in the Q&A chat box, and we will take it either during the course of the session or after we're done with the session. If we're unable to answer all your questions because of time, we will send you a written response via email. That's the range right there. So Ralph, are you in Cape Town or you're in Johannesburg?
I'm in Johannesburg.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So is it sunny or cold?
It's cold and sunny, as it often is in Johannesburg. Yeah.
Okay. So it's a bit like the London weather at the moment.
Probably, yeah. I don't want to make the London people or the UK people upset, but our winter in Johannesburg often similar temperatures to the UK summer.
Okay.
So.
Does it have the rains as well? No rains.
We don't have rain in Johannesburg, no.
Okay. In Manchester, I think it rains an average of, it rains almost every day of the year.
Alrighty.
Goes around with an umbrella. Yeah. Do we have more people that have joined in yet? Yes. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Could you please tell us where you're joining us from and your industry? If you could just put that in the chat, it would be really helpful. I'm just going to go over the ground rules while we wait for more people to join. So the session is being recorded. We will share the recording with participants afterwards. And if you have a question during the session, kindly put it in the Q&A chat box, and we will respond during the course of the session. If we're unable to, for whatever reason, for time constraints, we will send you a written response via email. Oh, I see Walter from Oyo State. Welcome, Walter. Oh, Gopher from Botswana. Nice to have you here. Thank you for joining us. Madonna is joining from Nigeria. Hello, Madonna. Welcome. I see Adetutu from Lagos, and welcome. I think we can go ahead and introduce the subject, and I trust that other attendees will join as we progress. Yeah. So thank you again for joining us today. We're very excited to be here. The webinar today is focused on technology in the boardroom. And this topic was predicated on the pandemic and the effect of the pandemic on companies and their operations. So in addition to other disruptors that companies were facing, such as changing regulations, new products, new market entrants, there was the advent of the pandemic that resulted in companies having to deal with conducting their meetings remotely. Over the next 45 minutes, we're going to listen to how boards can benefit from leveraging technology for this purpose. So from creating digital board books to collaboration by board members, we will demonstrate how directors and C-level executives can become more efficient in their board operations with the support of their company secretaries and IT personnel. But before we do that, we'll first of all hear about the imperatives of corporate governance from our main speaker today, Dr. Chinyere Almona. And this gives me an opportunity to introduce her. Ralph, could you? Thank you. Dr. Chinyere Almona is currently the CEO of Vantage Coaching and Consulting Services. She's a thought leader in corporate governance with extensive professional networks across Africa. She has over 30 years of diversified leadership, management, and governance experiences. She was formerly the head of IFC's Africa Corporate Governance Program and has assisted boards to improve structures, policies, and practices, and also facilitated trainings. Prior to that, she was a director at PwC, and she's a board advisor, corporate governance coach, consultant, and trainer. Dr. Almona, we're very pleased to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Bumi, and good morning to everyone on the call.
Thank you, Doctor. We also have Ralph Holes, my colleague and the head of On Board for Africa. So Ralph is going to be demonstrating to us today on how we can leverage technology for the benefit of boards in conducting their operations, remotely.
Thank you very much. Yeah, lovely to be online and have everybody taking part. It's an exciting evolution that we're undergoing, and it's great to be able to share more about it in this forum.
Great, great. So I think this would be a good time for us to take the first poll.
Yeah, we're going to run a couple of polls just to get some input from everybody on the line.
Yeah, so if you could kindly indicate what category you fall into, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, and I think probably what's key here is when you're looking at a technology solution such as Onboard, there are different ways to view it from, different persona really. There's the administration side, which is a lot more detailed on how to set things up and plan things. And then there's the sort of user or participant persona. So it's good to know who we have on the line, and it just helps me also to anticipate maybe some questions.
Thank you, Ralph. So we're going to give this another 30 seconds, and then we'll show the results.
Oops, it shouldn't be there. I see we have one person from IT. That's always interesting, the technical aspect. Often the IT people are just curious about the ins and outs of the tech side of it, much more than the nuts and bolts of setting up and planning the content of the meetings. That's interesting.
So from my experience, Ralph, they are, they go hand in hand with the secretariat. Oh, okay, we have the results of the polls. Great. So 31% are executive directors and C-suite executives. We have 13% that are non-executive directors. Oh, majority are company secretaries and meeting administrators. And then we have some people from the IT team. Okay, this is instructive and it will definitely help to tailor the discussion this morning. So thank you for your input. So we're going to move to the session and we're going to start with a conversation with Dr. Almona. Dr. Almona?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me clearly?
We can hear you very well. So I'm going to start by asking what your perspectives are on the role of boards in governance. I think it's important to set the context for the rest of this webinar today. So could you share your perspective, please?
Well, thanks, Bumi. This is a great place to start. I mean, when you think of technology in today's boardroom, a good place to start is to describe the boardroom, right? To describe how important the board is in the corporate governance constructs entirely. The board itself is an important factor in corporate governance. It consists of a group of, you will expect, diverse individuals. These individuals are appointed by the shareholder to administer the business, to control, to oversee the business. John Carver kind of described the board in his book as the link, the connection between the owners and management, because they direct control the company on behalf of the owner. And this basically is premised on the agency theory. Now, one of the things I described in my book, Corporate Governance for Small and Medium-Sized Businesses in African Economy, is the concept of agency and stewardship and how that works. I also described in great detail how the critical elements of corporate governance, one of which is a decision-making body. So the board is a decision-making body. And then that gives it the position of being the focal point or the critical pillar for corporate governance, because they make the decisions that drive the business. And the board is so important, and the members of that board. So you have executive directors, you have non-executive directors, you have some non-executives will be independent non-executive director, and then you have the chairman. These form the corporate body called the board, and they're responsible for monitoring activities of the board. They set the compensation of the CEO, they appoint, oversee senior management, they drive the corporate strategy, and the general performance of the company, of any company, will be determined by the composition of the board. Whether the company is a big company or a small company, and in my book, I kind of try to distinguish between a big company and a small company in terms of their decision-making bodies. And the fact that for an SME, you could start from having an advisory body, and that morphs into a bigger board. But the important thing, according to your question, is that the board is so critical to corporate governance because it sits in that position between management and the owners of the company.
Thank you for the elaborate explanation on that. So you've referenced the different components of a board, from the chairman to the independent non-executive directors to the executives, who all have varying responsibilities based on the corporate governance charter for companies and the applicable regulations. Can you share with us some of the challenges that these individuals in their individual capacities would face as board members in the conduct of their responsibilities?
Well, I read an article by McKinsey recently that says the boards, the challenges of the board will depend on where you sit. So depending on what kind of director you are, then the challenges could be different. But generally, there are several challenges that any board member, any director will face. Things like communication, risk management, information management. I mean, the board information is sensitive and confidential. Being able to aggregate that information and manage it is important. They have to deal with stakeholder and shareholder activism. There are several challenges that will pose a problem for directors, and they need to, as directors, prepare themselves ahead of time to face those challenges. But let's just go back, step back to, how does a board operate? And the basic mode of board operation is through board meetings, where business matters are discussed and important decisions are made. And the typical challenge, of course, for any board, therefore, will be, how do we ensure an effective board meeting? How do we ensure a board meeting that is efficient in its construct and it delivers the value that we want it to deliver? So, and this incorporates all the tasks before the board meeting, during the board meeting, and after the board meeting that will affect the outcome of the board meeting or the quality of the decisions from the board meeting. Now, I see that information or data is the lifeblood of the corporate governance setup itself, but it's particularly the lifeblood of the board meeting. And that information shouldn't just be any type of information. The information must be timely, it must be accurate, it must be relevant, it should be easily accessed and well protected for it to make sense and for it to achieve the purpose for the directors. Therefore, in providing oversight and guidance to executive, which is what the board is set up to do, they have to, they require real-time collaboration among themselves for the meeting to be effective and efficient. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really excited about this new tool and the possibility that technology can support what the board is doing and make their work a bit more efficient than it really is right now.
So before we move on to the role of the company secretary, who's at the heart of board operations, I would like to touch on something you've just spoken to, which has to do with the importance of information that is available to the board. The quality of the information, there's a correlation between that and the effectiveness of the board in decision making. So how do you think that technology can improve information accessible to the board and by implication board effectiveness?
So you see, I did talk about the lifeblood of board meetings being information, being data, and like you rightly said, the company secretary is right at the center of it all, because the company secretary has the responsibility to ensure that the board has accurate information ahead of time, during the meeting, and after the meeting. Now, anything that affects the quality of that information or the channel through which the information is going to pass will be a problem for directors to have to cope with. So if directors require high quality, up-to-date information in order for them to contribute value and make the right decision, it's important that we explore how technology can help them aggregate the information, how technology can ensure that the quality of information is right for the board decisions or the board discussions that should be had at the board meeting, and generally how technology can support everything that the board is doing. So if I think about the importance of technology to corporate governance, I would think of transparency. How does technology support transparency? I would think of information management. I would think of accountability and increasing engagement with stakeholders. These are the things that technology can enable to happen smoothly. So for me, technology provides that framework for clear documentation and communication of decisions from the board and information coming back to the board. And technology also removes the risk of having poor information or low value, low quality of information. You talked about board paper control or aggregation of information. All of those can be enabled by technology. If technology provides the company secretary with a way to smoothly provide access to directors, then that's great. If technology provides a way for that information to be secure, then that's awesome. And it's important for directors, because in sharing information, disseminating information, nobody wants to have any form of leakage in that channel I talked about. Okay, so technology does help in providing efficiency for board interactions.
Thank you. So we'll hear very shortly from Ralph on how technology is an enabler, like you've rightly elaborated. But I'd like to touch on, the role of the company secretary and, talk about it in a bit more detail, because as we've seen from the poll, we have a few company secretaries here. And I think it'll be good to hear your perspective on, their responsibilities and how integral they are to board operations.
The company secretary occupies a very unique position in the organization. Okay, so he or she is the key point, the key contact person for the chairman or the chairperson, as it were, and is the central member of the senior management team. So company secretaries are expected to be senior management. Now, the company secretary bridges the gap between the boardroom and the executive corridor. And when I say at the beginning, I did say that the board sits in that position between shareholders and and management. I would say that company secretaries kind of play a larger role, because they are the nexus between the shareholders, the directors, executive management, and sometimes stakeholders. So they kind of play a very critical role. In the past, there's this kind of mindset that the role of the company secretary is a clerical administrative role. In fact, I saw a survey that was done in 2012, and an executive director of a FTSE 250 company was quoted to have said that, I'll read that, says, other than form filling and complying with certain rules, the company secretary has very little substance to add. And I don't think there is much of a role of a company secretary. It is a glorified clerical position. Now, that is like, no, even as at 2012, when the study was done, it's not possible for that to be the reality, but that was the perspective at the time. But now things have changed, and the truth is the company secretary's role is so pivotal to everything that's going on the board. I will share a slide now that kind of just shows the strength of the company secretary's position in the organization and the value that it commands. So if you look at this slide, you will see that, in fact, this is just like a little bit, a tiny percentage, tiny fraction of what the company secretary does. But you can see from this slide that the company secretary does so much to enable the board function, but to also enable the company itself to function well, to enable the company to comply with rules, with regulation, with the best practices, to engage with stakeholders, to support the entire flow of things. So if you take out the company secretary from the mix, it's everything kind of blows up. The company secretary, therefore, is an important part, an important piece. And if we say that the company secretary has these roles to play, the company secretary is so uniquely placed, then we have to think of how do we enable the company secretaries to do the work in a very smooth fashion? How do we enable the company secretaries to be efficient, to be effective in scheduling meetings, in supporting the board and committee meetings, and helping management navigate the corporate governance arena? That's what we need to think about, and hopefully that's what technology should do to help company secretaries do their work in a very smooth fashion.
So I'm sure we'll hear from Ralph in more details on how we can leverage technology to remove the administrative element of a company secretary's responsibilities, so that they can focus on being a more strategic partner to the business, which is, addressing the points that you've so eloquently elaborated on. So the final question I have for you before we move on to Ralph is, to share your perspective, because from my experience, a lot of companies in Africa they have not embraced technology fully, or they're not even leveraging it currently in their operations. You find that a lot of companies are still very manual. in their processes. And, you know, as a result, they're not as efficient, in my view, as they could be. What are your thoughts on what steps can be taken to elevate the adoption of technology across Africa?
So one needs to think first, what are the challenges that companies are facing with technology adoption? And one will be, for us in Africa, is internet connectivity. So whatever platform, we need to think, how do we leverage that platform without strong, you know, emphasis on that connectivity, because that connectivity does fail. So how do we work around it? We also need to think of how to ensure safe and secure data storage, you know, on servers in Africa. That we need to think about if we want to elevate, like you said, technology adoption in Africa. The other thing is really kind of a general lack of understanding of the benefits or how efficient life can be, business can run with technology. Now, with the pandemic, I think everybody has been thrown into the digital world, and you have to swim or sink. And I'm glad that a lot of companies are swimming, but how do we enable them to swim better? That's what we then need to think. So one is definitely capacity building. We have to create awareness of the benefits of technology. We have to create awareness of the way it works. We also have to help companies compare platforms. So there's really very little availability of information, very little information available on comparing different platforms. So companies can say, now you come into this platform to me, but how does it compare with other platforms? What do I need to know? Just understand the elements of those will be helpful. But the important thing is to create awareness and to train so people understand it. They can navigate how it supports their strategies in their companies, how it can help them to be faster, to be more effective, to be more efficient as they conduct business in Africa. And I believe that some of those that Ralph will kind of touch on some of this, because once we are able to deliver on those, these are some of the concerns, so we can deliver on those concerns, then it will be easy to elevate the adoption of technology.
Thank you very much, Dr. Almona. I think this is a good time to sort of give the floor to Ralph so that he can tell us, because you've elaborated on how technology can advance, you know, good governance standards within companies. But you've also highlighted concerns that, you know, companies have around the use of technology. You've talked about, you know, lack of internet in some parts of Africa, stable internet. You've talked about security you've talked about, you know, different knowing the options that are available and the advantages of a particular solution over the other. So Ralph, could you please speak to us on some of these issues from your perspective as an experienced board technology in has rightly raised. Ralph, are you still there?
I'm still here. You were going a little bit slow there, so I'm not sure whose connection it is, but it is quite amusing that came in at exactly that point, because your point made about technology is a very valid one, is the reliability of it, the availability of it. Of course, you know, technology is advanced or mature and has different levels of maturity across the world, and certainly Africa in many cases has been slow to advance, but in many other cases they've jumped straight into, you know, the most advanced tech, especially on the mobile front. So I think Africa is getting there. I think with this platform and platforms like this, it is built to sit in the cloud. You know, the cloud is basically the internet, a secure place in the internet. And yes, you know, it certainly does have a challenge if you need to be connected. I think what we find is that most people are able to have connections for some time. And that's the beauty of a system like this, is that you can connect, synchronize everything, and then you can disconnect and you can be offline and you can work comfortably using the platform offline and then connect again and resynchronize. So it's kind of checking in at times. So you don't need to be perfectly 100% with a fast connection 100% of the time. You know? So I think that it certainly helps from that perspective, that there is that ability to be both offline and online, but still have the security of the cloud at your fingertips.
Okay, so I'd like you to please elaborate a bit more on, the security of, board platforms, because that is, from my experience, a concern for a lot of individuals or companies that you speak to about, adopting technology. So security and then ease of usability. From my experience, it's quite intuitive. It's like using your mobile phone or internet banking. I've heard you say that so many times, but I think the participants here today would like to hear from you how easy and how accessible it is, as well as obviously what security measures your board portal, specifically on board, has in place to mitigate some of these concerns.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I think simplicity and security are the two pillars of onboard, certainly, in that it is very intuitive, and I think that's the feedback I've had from people who've used it. It's laid out very simply to use for administrators and for people who are using. But security is of paramount importance. We're not dealing with just arbitrary information here. We're dealing with board information, company confidential information. It's important. It's cloud security. How secure is that? Of course, we know in the world there are always security threats, and there's a big industry of cybersecurity out there, which a lot of organizations have to have, and it's important to have. But I think, as you mentioned about internet banking, I often use that analogy. 10 years ago, I think it was, internet banking sort of was introduced, only 10 years ago. And at that time, there were some early adopters, and there were probably some people who thought, let's try this and let's work it. But it took a while to be accepted and to be used sort of ubiquitously. And I think today I challenge any of the attendees to tell me if they're not using some form of internet banking or mobile banking in some form, and why do you use it? Well, I guess you've learned to trust it to an extent, and it's just ease of use. It makes your life, you're able to work with it that way. So and as you'll see when we look a little bit deeper into the system, as an administrator, to set everything up in one place, but to understand that you have a high level of security, top of the range encryption, passwords, additional layers of security and authentication. The system sits in the cloud. It's constantly being backed up. So if your office burns down, you're not going to lose all your company confidential information. It's easily obtained again. So there are many benefits to being able to run that, not just the fact that due to the pandemic, we're suddenly physically dispersed, and makes it even harder to sort of combine everything and coordinate it in one place.
So you're definitely speaking to the converted. In a previous role where I had responsibilities for managing and supporting 19 subsidiaries across Africa, I definitely benefited from leveraging on similar technology to effectively support those boards across multiple jurisdictions with different regulatory requirements, and standardizing all of that with the group requirements. But in the case of, but then that was a big company, a conglomerate. So for smaller companies, for startups, there's usually a concern around the cost of, having such technology. In fact, there's the assumption that is reserved for, big companies, Fortune 500 companies. What would you say to, individuals who are here today, participants who are in such companies, or work with such companies, and how would you reassure them that this is technology that can be accessible to them, in spite of the size of their balance sheet and their capitalization?
Absolutely, very, very good point. Is it a nice to have? Is it a must have? I get that question. Well, I guess it depends on the complexity and the size of your organization. If you're a small startup, I think it's really important that you're still able to combine all the information in a secure place and to coordinate your activities and track everything. That is one of the reasons they came up, or technology has advanced in this cloud example. In previous years, you would have to buy the program. It would have to be installed on a computer on your premises. You would have to buy some computers or servers, etc. And you would have to have people coming in and physically doing the training, etc. With the cloud solution, it's built in such a way that it's lean and mean. It's my best example to explain it. And then it's really on a subscriber basis. So if you've got 4 or 5 board members, you can purchase the system and just use it. And there's no additional costs. There's just a subscriber fee. And because of that architecture and the way it's built, it's able to be affordable for small startup businesses as much, and very scalable, of course, on the other end with huge, large multinational Fortune 500 type size companies.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, Ralph. I think this would actually be a really good time for us to take the second poll, which is, interested in getting a sense of the kind of technology that our participants are using in their organizations, in the conduct of their meetings and, other board-related operations. So if you could kindly indicate what category you fall in, and if it's more than one, please indicate that as well. I think we can give it another 30 seconds, and then we can show the results.
Yeah, roughly half have voted. I see 3 people have making use of board portal solutions, so that's good to see. Good to see that there's some early adopters in our audience today.
Can we get the results, please?
There we go.
I think it's quite instructive that 81% of the participants here today are leveraging Zoom, Teams. I mean, we're leveraging on Zoom for this webinar today. SharePoint, Microsoft Outlook, 25%. I presume that's mainly for emails. Only 19% are using board portals. Okay, I think, Ralph, the poll results clearly shows that there's a need for you to demonstrate how on board a board portal can facilitate and improve board effectiveness, so that the next time this kind of poll is done, we have more numbers referencing
absolutely.
the use of board portals.
Yeah.
So I'll allow you to just, segue into that at this point.
May I just say, just add a word to say that it's also interesting. I found it interesting that only 3 participants indicated the board portal, because board portals provide a level of security and efficiency that is difficult to find on other platforms. So I think that says that this webinar is timely and quite relevant for the participants and the business community as a whole. And this is something that you need to do, Ralph. You need to kind of do this more, so more people are aware and they understand the benefits of using the board portal.
Absolutely, I think so. That's a very good point, and I'll jump in quickly. We're on tight on time, so I'll be as quick as I can. But I just want to give everyone on the call a view of how onboard looks and what it can do. But I think that what I'm seeing from the poll is that people are using a combination of tools. That's quite logical. That's quite common. We see that. That's a normal evolution, and that's what I say. We're in evolution at the moment. as I mentioned with internet banking, you know, so there's portals out there, they're going to get better and better over time, constantly, and more, you know, user friendly and more affordable, and all of these things will happen. So it's good to see now, as you say, what is out there. I'm without further ado going to share my screen. I'm going to also just kill my video for the momentarily, just to show you. So as I did mention, it's a cloud solution. You really just need a web browser like Chrome or whatever you're using, and an internet connection to initially connect. The security is there for all to see. There is something called single sign-on at the bottom. If your organization is using Microsoft or Google already, you can then use those credentials to sign in. And then you obviously don't need to remember another username and password, and goodness knows we all have enough username and passwords to remember in the modern world. As you'll see from the next screen, we have what's called two-factor authentication. This is also quite common in cloud solutions. This is really just an additional layer of security to safeguard your username and password in the case that it might be compromised. There's an additional layer of security. You need to get a code which comes to my email, and I enter it, and then once I've entered it, I'm into an opening screen. If I'm using onboard for many different entities at the same time, they will all show up on the screen, and I will choose which entity I'm working with. Of course, today we're popping straight into our onboard demo environment. It opens up a dashboard. I think it looks, or the look and feel in general, I think is quite similar to, again, I've come with my internet banking side of things. There's a announcements section where you can give some announcements about your organization. You can quickly see what upcoming meetings are available, and you can also sort of set a shortcut to folders on your portal that you reference quite frequently. I'll quickly take you through. The left side are all the functionalities at a fairly high level, and let's see how much time we have to dig into a bit of detail. If there's any areas, of course, that you want more information on, of course, we'll share contact details at the end, and you're welcome to get in touch to have a further demonstration and dive a little deeper. Is the calendar. This is the section where you would see all your meetings that are upcoming. Here at the bottom is a meeting I've got upcoming. All my past meetings are showing here. If you need suddenly, for some reason, to reference last year, September's board meeting, at the click of a button, you can access it and have a look at the pack that was in that meeting, all available within the system, which is very nice. There's an actions section, they call it, and these encompass 4 main areas: approvals or e-voting. If you need to set up resolutions that need to be voted on, or if you need to sign off meeting minutes, these kind of things, you can set these up in the portal and instruct everyone who has access to the portal, your board. They will all get a notification, and they will then be able to cast their vote and sign off, and all can be done within the security of the portal. Likewise, surveys, if you're doing board evaluation surveys or other kinds of surveys in your organization, you can set them up here. E-signatures is an important one, to be able to sign documents that need to be signed. If you need everybody to sign it, they will all be tasked with it, and you'll be able to close the signature and produce the signed document once everyone has signed. And there's also a questionnaires feature for directors and officers, questionnaires that are sometimes required. All of those within the action section. The notifications, you would probably go here every time you log in. Likely there'll be a red dot there, and this is just built in the same way that humans have become conditioned now with smart devices and smart apps. And just at this point, I'll mention that Onboard has an app. I think I've touched on it before. Has an app on all 4 app stores that you can download, so you can really access your board communications and meetings from the comfort of your device offline. You would get a red dot just saying you've got a notification. Maybe it'll say there's a new meeting for your attention, or a document that needs to be signed. So it's a great way to keep abreast of what's happening. The resources folder, this is your OneDrive equivalent, or your Google Drive or your Dropbox type of equivalent. It's an online repository. It's where you can store everything related to your board. As you can see here, I've got tons of folders. You can set up folders as you like. You can, of course, create permissions for those folders. So if you have a sensitive folder that's only for the eyes of the chairperson, or maybe a remuneration folder, whatever it is, you can control the access. Then even though I have access to onboard, I cannot see the folders unless I've been given access to them. So unlimited space within the resources to store everything and anything regarding your board. The directory really is the users. These are the people who have access to the platform. This would be your board and your company secretary. And you can set up groups that make it easy to action groups. If you've got a remuneration committee maybe, or a finance committee, and you need them to sign a document, or you need to invite them to a meeting, you can just add them to that and they'll automatically be notified. One thing to point out here in the directory on the far right here, these 3 dots called ellipses. If you click on that, there's a wipe devices remotely function. This allows you as an administrator to wipe a device. Let's say you lose your iPad, or you've left the organization, or it's gotten the device has been stolen. You can then select that the next time that document or that device accesses the internet, wherever it is in the world, it will automatically wipe all onboard related documentation. So you won't have any company sensitive information floating around on a device over which you have no control. Then there's the messenger back on the left side. This is secure in-app messaging. Some portals have got a separate app for messaging. This is self-contained within onboard. This is just, again, a way for you to have messaging. I seem to have lost my screen. That's odd. I'm not sure if everyone can see the screen anymore.
We can still see your screen, Ralph.
Fabulous. Okay, I can't. That's
okay, so while we're waiting for you to regularize things at your end, we have a question in Q&A. So there are actually 3 questions from Ollie. What is the level of data protection guaranteed by these board management solutions? I think Ralph has spoken to that earlier in terms of data protection and use of cloud technology. So I think that question has been addressed in the course of the conversation.
I can jump in there and just to say that you know, it sits within the Microsoft Azure cloud, which is up there with the top industry cloud environments like Amazon Web Services. Google's got a cloud. Apple, all of these organizations have got these industry standard clouds. Azure is where Microsoft sits, the Microsoft 365, all your emails and all that sits within the same cloud. And there's a whole host of encryption and ISO security standards that Onboard is compliant with. Of course, I could supply all of that information, but there's a very high level of security. Happy to give you more detail on that after the session. I think my screen is back and I'm cognizant of time, so I'm going to jump back to where I was. Sorry about that, everybody. I was telling you about the in-app messaging. Again, this is just a messaging platform, but it's conversations you have within your board. So you can keep them with that and keep your WhatsApp and your Facebook Messenger for other conversations. Then there's the task manager. That's the last one that I wanted to go to at a high level. This again speaks to your company secretary, administrator type role. I guess when you want to task people in the board for matters arising out of the meetings, or if something that needs to be taken care of, you can set up a task and then assign it to people. That person will get reminders daily until they have completed the task. As an administrator or as a user, you could log in and look on the left side here. You have the tasks that are assigned to me or assigned to others if I'm the administrator, which tasks are due today or this week, for example. So fantastic way to manage the activities of your board in one place to know what's happening. Yes, you can do this with email and with Microsoft Task Manager. There's no doubt there's a way to do all of these with a myriad of tools, but here it is all in one easy to use platform. That's in a high level is all the functionality that we have. There are some settings here just to speak to the security question. You can enforce app security so that you have to use on your app the Face ID or the biometric security. The 2-factor authentication I showed you earlier is the additional layer of security. You can add exceptions if you so wish. Something else also to mention that sometimes people ask, especially in the transition, can you download the document? Yes, you can. You can enable document downloads if you like, or you could disable them if you want to drive behavior and also avoid having board papers lying around on printers maybe that you're not aware of. You can control that within the portal. So you can, again, allow document downloads, or you can prohibit it, but allow it for certain people as an exception. So all of those kinds of features are available in the platform as well. One thing more to mention while we're talking security features and general feature settings itself, you might be wondering how you would sign a document. We're sitting on 8 minutes to go before the end of the session, so I'm not going to do an actual e-signature, but I just wanted to show you here as my own settings. I have my two-factor authentication. I have my third-party sign-in if I'm using another platform, and of course, mainly here's my signature at the bottom. I've just done a scribble. I can set my signature, or I can upload my signature to the portal, and then I can sign documents with my own signature. So very good way for you to manage document signature, which is a big part of board activities. And then I think really just very quickly to show you with the time we have available, here's a meeting. I would, in a separate session, go through how easy and quick it is for a company secretary administrator to go through the setup of the meeting, both the remote meeting, which is the Zoom or the Teams component that you would add to the meeting, the calendar integration, the invitees who are part of this meeting, and of course the agenda. I'll jump straight to the board book. You would upload the board. You don't have to convert all your documents to PDF first. You can upload the documents as and when they come to you, and in the different sections, as I have here. On the left, I've got my agenda, and I'm scrolling through that. If I want to go straight to the financial section, I can just click on that and it takes me straight there. And then the one I wanted to show you with 1 minute left is the annotation capabilities. You can make your own notes. You can freehand with a stylus on your tablet. You can highlight text, or you can, of course, put text boxes in, and you're able to make your notes. The beauty of this is you can share these notes and annotations with people in your board if you like. If not, of course, they remain your notes and no one else can see them. Only if you decide to share them will they be then visible to other people. So you can store that information on the board pack. And navigation through the pack is very simple. You can also remove temporarily the agenda, so you can increase the size of your viewing area. I would show some more examples, and obviously how we could how it would look on an iPad or on a device, just to give you that idea from a user perspective. But I'm afraid we're probably a little tight on time, since we wanted to close off and wrap up and summarize and look at some next steps. I think typically for the for further information and further deep dive demos into the system. So I think that's a very quick rundown, Bunmi. I'm sorry I sort of rushed through it a little bit, but I think, as I said, there's always opportunities. It's the idea is to give people an initial flavor and to see how it looks, and then of course we're very, very happy to spend some more time on more detail.
Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Ralph. So we have one more poll. If we could just pull that up, just to get a bit of perspective from our participants on some of the challenges they've had with organizing or board meetings generally. But while we're doing that, Ralph, could you just give us a sense of how long it would take to build a digital book, a board book, relative to what it would take to create a physical board pack? So the board book you just showed us, yeah, how much time did it take you to build it on average?
Excellent question. I mean, it does depend on the size. Some people have 200 to 300 page documents sometimes. Then it can probably take 5 or 10 minutes, I would say. It all depends on the speed of your computer that you're using, and obviously the cloud. Sometimes there's a bit of a thunderstorm or torrential rain like you have in Nigeria, and it might slow things down. But compared to normally gathering all the documents, PDFing them, checking that everything's right in the format, then printing them out double-sided, and then, oh, there's a last-minute change. We need to take that page out and put this one in. With something like Onboard, you just add to the sections. You've got your marketing section, strategy section, finance section. You upload the documents, and when you press Build Book, Onboard really then takes all of those documents and molds them into a readable PDF. And of course, if your formatting is slightly out with the Excel, perhaps, then you can just go in and fix the source document and re-upload. So it's very quick. It's difficult to say how quick, but certainly I would say minutes as opposed to hours to build up a book like that.
So what you're saying is music to my ears, and I think a lot of the company secretaries who are here, because prior to using a board portal, it would take us, at the time I was supporting a board of about 20 directors, and we would have to print about 25 board packs because we would also have to keep copies for regulators. And sometimes it would take us an average of a week, because you have to also factor in the fact that you won't always get all the papers, on time. So it's spread over a period. And, we used to tease ourselves about, operating like a printing press, because we had chunks of papers everywhere. Sometimes, the printer would be jammed because it's been running for so long. But this eliminates all of that. And then it speaks to, what we said earlier about, this company secretary moving from just being administrative support to being strategic, because you can sort of, allow technology to deal with the issues that would ordinarily take your time. So thank you so much, Ralph, for the demonstration. Go ahead, please.
No, I just think, I think the utopia for some organizations is to get the packs out to give enough time for pre-reading and preparation, and not have it arriving at the last minute. And this, of course, enables that so much. So in terms of the efficiency that Dr. Almona was referring to, that those are the kinds of subtleties, you might say, that are greatly enhanced with the use of a portal that you can trust and rely on is dependable and in one place and covers all those needs. Absolutely.
Something else that I have found really useful is your ability to refer to board books as far back as whenever you started using the portal. So you basically have an archive at your disposal. Prior to that, people had rooms full of board packs and trying to get information from 4 meetings ago or meetings 2 years ago was a challenge. And as a director, it's important that you're able to easily reference papers of meetings that you've attended. I mean, Dr. Almona obviously can speak to this more, but it's important that as a director, you're able to reference papers of meetings where you've attended. Being a director is serious business. It comes with, some liability, and it's important that at every given point in time, you're on top of the information that has been shared with you when you're on the board. So we'll take time now to quickly, because I'm mindful of time, to kindly, take the last poll, which basically just wants to get a sense of the challenges that, some of our participants have faced in addition to the ones we've spoken to. And my hope is that with Ralph's demonstration, it's addressed a lot of these challenges. So we just give that another 10 seconds and then we'll see the results and then wrap up for the day.
Yeah. I will share. The screen while we are busy with our final poll.
We don't have any more questions, except for the questions on from obviously an IT person based on the nature of those questions. But I see that Judith had her hand raised. I don't know if she has I don't know if she's aware that she had her hand raised. If she has a question or she, yes, Judith, do you have a question? Do you have something to say? Okay, I think it might just have been inadvertently. So can we have the results of the polls, please?
Let's have a look.
Ralph, as part of your wrap up in a minute, can you just speak to how On Board would address all of these issues, focusing, of course, on the prevalent one around last minute changes, as well as, voluminous board packs that are difficult to review. So please tell us how On Board can assist with this knotty issues. And then, of course, access of, meeting papers securely from anywhere.
Absolutely, I'll go through them now. Just to point out that Cheryl has raised her hand, so Cheryl will get to you. I've noticed that. Just in a second if you've still got time.
Yes.
Yeah, so the last minute agenda, board pack changes, you know, as the administrator, you have a lot of power. You can update the agenda. The way Onboard works is you publish the agenda to the attendees. So if you're busy making the changes, you can leave it until you're ready to publish it. Then everyone will see the agenda. If you have to make a change at the last minute, you can do so. It will automatically update in everybody's meeting. You can even make agenda changes in the meeting. We didn't have a chance to look at the minutes builder function, but while you're in the meeting, the administrator can create a new agenda item if it comes out in the meeting. So the flexibility is there for those kind of things. Connecting in a boardroom where attendance is physical and virtual, you know, again, it's a very good point. It's not only a virtual system in the sense that you have to be having Zoom meetings or Teams meetings. You can all be sitting in a room and still, it's the vault, it's the virtual boardroom that stores everything. You can run the meeting, you can still generate all the actions out of it and store everything and access everything in the portal. Even if you're all sitting around the table together, it's just the place that you can manage everything from and store it and know that it's safe and secure, just like your money is in your internet banking. And the ability to access meeting papers securely, as I mentioned, I did cover the security. So there's obviously the app security is at a high level. The encryption, have a whole lot of information on encryption of the data is encrypted, of course, and the system is fully GDPR compliant because it originated in the UK and POPI compliant for South Africa. But obviously, we need to look at each of those areas within your jurisdictions. And then obviously, yeah, voluminous board packs. That's you can have numerous pages. There's no real limit to the size of documents that you have. It just it enables you to scroll through. Again, if you're on a device, on a tablet, you can scroll through the pages on the pack. So yeah, there's the ability to have many hundreds of pages. It's you really only limit is the screen that you're looking at in terms of the format.
Okay. So before I let Dr. Almona give us her thoughts, I would like to add a few things to what you've said, Ralph. So regarding last minute agenda and board packs, as you've said, the company secretary has control and can edit the agenda real time. But more importantly, once a new document is added to the board pack, there's an indicator that tells you have a new document, and you can just, redirect to that and, read that, in time for your meeting. So I think that's also a very useful tool, because typically if you had a physical pack, you'd be looking for how you would sort of, bind it and add it to an existing pack or have another pack, which can be quite cumbersome. The other thing to mention around voluminous board packs is you have an opportunity through the table of contents to sort of go to the documents that are most relevant for you. Obviously, as a board member, you must be aware of the information that is presented to you as a whole. But then again, depending on your expertise, depending on your role, whether you're chairman, whether or not you're chairman of a committee, whether or not you're the finance director, whether or not you're the chief risk officer, there's obviously a need for you to be focused on certain aspects of the board pack more than others. And the content basically allows you to do that. You're able to go straight to the parts of the document that are most important to you, irrespective of the volume. So we'll give a chance to people in the audience now to have a word. I just saw
I think Cheryl had a
pop
question,
yes,
but I'm not sure if she wrote it in the chat. There we go. Can you search by keywords for certain approvals made or projects discussed at previous board meetings? Very good question. There is a search functionality, but you can't. It won't pick up within a document, unfortunately. So you can search the meetings, the packs. If you've named the packs in a certain naming convention, you can search that way. But if you wrote the word help somewhere or deny access or something that you remember, within an approval or within a document, it doesn't have that level yet. But the thing with these cloud-based platforms is they're constantly developing additional functionality to enhance it. As I said, this is an evolution. So again, that's something we could look at, Cheryl, if you wanted to look a little bit deeper and test it out and see actually whether it kind of works for you. That's probably the best way to work that one out.
Ralph, while you check if we have any other questions, Dr. Almona would like to hear from you. What are your key takeaways for the participants of the session today? If they remember nothing else from what you've told us today, what would you like them to take away and not forget?
Well, first of all, is to I've popped my book in the charts, my book on corporate governance for small and medium-sized business in African economies, and the links. And to say that for me, the important thing is that corporate governance improves, that that boards are able to govern the companies in a way that adds value, because the board is not an end to itself. The board is a means to an end, and that end is performance, better performance of the company. If boards are able to free themselves of the burden of board papers and bulky reviews and all the challenges that they face with administering board meetings or running those board meetings, and focus on the work that they are supposed to deliver, then I believe that companies will be better governed. And for me, that's like music to my ear. So I'm glad about the onboard platform, and I will encourage everyone to do a trial run. I believe that there's opportunity to do a trial run to see, will this be applicable or appropriate for my business size and for the type of people on my board. So I think if that facility exists, it's great to just try it out and see how that will eliminate the problems and help you manage the risk of board meetings. Thanks, Ralph. Thanks, me.
Thank you, Dr. Almona. So on that note, would like to thank everybody who's joined us today. We hope you feel that this is an hour that has been well spent. As Dr. Almona has said, if you are interested in getting more information on how Onboard works, kindly send us an email on the email that you can see on the screen. We're happy to arrange for a demo for people who are interested. And we believe that it would really add value to how you would conduct, your meetings, and not just board meetings, even, other meetings within businesses. I see, yes. So we have a pop-up on the screen asking if you would like, a consultation to discuss further. Please, if you could indicate so we can come back to you shortly after. And if you want to think about it, that's also fine. Feel free to send us an email. Thank you, Adetutu. Adetutu found the session quite instructive. Very pleased to hear that. And we look forward to hearing from everyone. Dr. Almona, thank you again for your time. It's always a pleasure listening to you. Ralph, as usual, you delivered an excellent demo in record time.
Yes, record time.
In record time. So would like to thank everyone.
Very good. Thank you very much, everyone. Dr. Almona, I really appreciate your
Thank you,
participation.
Thank you for your time. My pleasure. So we look forward to hosting you again soon, and to, working together to improve the adoption of technology, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa. So to our colleagues joining us from other parts of the world, Botswana, we're very excited to have you. South Africa, thank you so much for joining us. And we hope that you'll be in touch soon. So thank you all.
Excellent. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye-bye.